Okay.
Okay, everybody. So again, this is Dr. Amanda Kemp, and we are here in our final hour of our 3-hour live stream. And I have to say, it actually has been kind of fun because each hour I've had someone else, a different person on screen with me. And we started off with Melody Leon, who's the owner of Blush Beautiful and who does inner and outer makeup. And Melody does a lot of work around your inner vibration and taking responsibility for what's happening on the inside with you, because of course that affects what shows up outside of you and in your relationships, including your relationships across the color line. And then we had Dr. Erica Fitz on, who is the editor of this book, Stop Being Afraid, 5 Steps to Transform Your Conversations About Racism. So Erica and I were talking about how, when talking with people of European descent, like how to work with people's defense mechanisms. You know, when white fragility shows up, what do you do? And Erica was really talking about the first 2 steps in our program, which are to check in with your wise self to make sure that you're supposed to be the one in that conversation. And then step 2, to hold space for transformation, because that can help that person get deeper below their defense mechanism into what's really going on for them. But now we have here our special guest. Would you like to say your name?
Makeda.
Makeda, who is a relative. Guess which relative? Okay, so my daughter, and Makeda works with Racial Justice for the Heart with me. And so I thought I'd bring Makeda on because she has a completely different perspective, being so many decades younger than me, on, you know, what goes on in conversations about race where they don't work, you know, and I thought we could also talk about what it's like for women of color to you know, to own ourselves, you know, to own our programming and how to take care of ourselves. Because I think so often in our conversations, what doesn't work is when we have needs that we're not meeting, or we're not even aware of our needs, and we're just, you know, having anxiety attacks, or just like, you know, want to jump across the table and choke somebody, you know,
Yeah.
Or, you know, shut down without even knowing we're shut down. Because people do whatever they do to keep themselves safe, and sometimes those things aren't healthy.
And I think, especially in the Black community, it's been so historically built in us to just, as long as you're existing, as long as you're surviving, you are well. Like, if you're healthy, you're well. But the other pieces, like in the past, Black people have never really had the leisure of looking at their mental state of being. And that's why whenever I feel hopeless, I always tell myself this is the best time it's ever been in America to be Black, to be a Black woman. And so to be able to have that luxury to look inwards now and not have to worry about my my survival is really refreshing, and really it's uplifting for me.
Well, you know what's cool about it is that because what you're saying, like, you're living in a new historical moment, let's say, that my mother didn't live in. So my mother, when she gave birth to me in 1966, Mississippi was segregated. So I was born not in a hospital. And because it was a Black doctor, he didn't have privileges in the white hospital. And, you know, my mother dealt with a lot of hardship. But I think what's so beautiful about now is that when you have fewer hardships like that, you actually have the space, you can do some ancestral healing.
Yeah.
You can actually do the healing that my mother couldn't do, or my great grandmother couldn't do, because she was just needing to survive. And the healing you do on yourself can affect generations behind you, as well as, of course, the generations that have come after you, because you're going to pass on your healing, and any unresolved issues, any trauma that you have not healed, you will transfer. So the work you do goes backward and forward.
Right. I think you were like really the pivot point in my generation, or not my generation, my ancestral line. I think it was definitely you.
I kind of think so too.
God bless.
No, No, I mean, honestly, because I remember the day that I met an African-American teacher, a spiritual teacher, who is a mentor to my mentor. So, Neonu Span, someone I talk about a lot, is someone I consider a mentor. Well, her mentor once told me that I could heal generations back. And I hadn't thought that. I thought that the past was the past and I couldn't do anything about it. All I could do was about the future. And if you believe that, all grace to you. Keep going if it works for you. But when she gave me this opening that I could heal the past, I was like, I didn't have to be the child of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And I come from generations of trauma.
And all it took was someone to say it to you, someone to even make that a possibility.
Someone Black had to say it. Like, if someone else had said it, maybe I would have been intrigued, but to have another older Black woman say it, just made me, it almost gave me a little bit of a mission, a sense of purpose.
I feel that, because if she's doing it, she's saying it's possible, then it's possible for you.
Yes. And that's what we do for each other. We are the ones who let each other know that it's possible. Hey, Becca, so good to see you. I think you might have seen Makeda when you used to live here. She was a little girl. But so Makeda and I are talking about how she was talking about how being in her current generation, she has privileges and opportunities that previous generations of Black women didn't have, Black people. And I said, well, you can heal the trauma of previous generations. And so we were just getting into that conversation. So thank you for joining us. There was something else that you were saying, Makeda. There's something else you said that struck me, but I guess we'll come back to it. So let's talk about this book, Stop Being Afraid, 5 Steps to Transform Your Conversations About Racism.
Yes.
Why don't we talk about it? In fact, why don't we put a link in the comments for that so that you guys don't have to search for it. You can just pull it right on up on the screen. So, Makeda, one of the things oh, hey, Haley. Wow, I'm really loving who's on this live stream. So, Makeda, one of the things that you, being the daughter, I guess I want to know what do you think is liberatory for you about being the daughter of, a racial justice and mindfulness mentor, a racial justice advocate like me? I don't know, what are some of the things that are maybe harder for you or easier for you because you're in close proximity?
I feel like, just to do the job that you do, you have to definitely already have a certain personality type and a certain view of the world, like a certain view of equality on all people, I would say, because you're not oppressing Black people, but you're not, attacking white people either, which is, because, in Black communities, it tends to be like a hostility. And, I mean, it's your enslaver, I feel it. But at the same time, they're people. It's not just means of a system. It's part of it, but people are people. People have feelings. And I feel like that's what's just missing in general. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. But we should
come back to that, because that's a good point.
But so being raised by a person who sees people like that, who sees each person as a person with feelings rather than a subcategory of a race or whatever it is, really was a blessing for me, because I was just raised to be empathetic and not to close myself off to people I can't relate to, but rather open up more and try to figure out and learn new things about that. And I really love that about myself. And I know I definitely get it from you, to just always be kind, and you never know stuff about a person, so giving the benefit of the doubt, basically, but approaching it with love. So that's one of them.
Wow, I think that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about this. I brought this up when I was talking to Melody. You weren't on because you don't follow me unless I pay you to. Somehow energetically we're communicating. But one thing I was telling Melody was how when you were little, I told you that when you were like 12, you would discover your superpowers. You remember that? Because you and your brother were reading all these books about kids who were finding out they were really gods and demigods.
I wanted to have superpowers so badly.
And I feel like you do. And I feel like one of your the reason why I bring it up is I feel like one of your superpowers is this I don't know, it's empathy, but it's almost like I don't know, what do you call that? Loving energy? There's something you have. People try to tell me what it is about you.
I would call it unconditional compassion.
Yeah.
Where I just can't, even if I know a person has done terrible things, I can't ignore a person's humanity per se.
Wow.
Which is interesting.
And I've been interesting.
Thinking a lot about that because I think the issue with like problems in America, not to take it there, but it's like the bigger a group gets, the harder it is to interact and like feel that emotion for somebody. It's like a mob mentality kind of forms the larger the group. So like for me and for anyone who wants to like have more connected experiences with people, one-on-one or small groups is always the way to go, because like the bigger a group gets, the less personalized I think we all feel towards each other.
Wow. Connective. I like that word.
At least at my age. I know at my age, like, you know, teenagers tend to put up a facade.
True.
When they're in bigger, larger settings. So that could just be
and on social media.
I mean, yeah.
But not just teenagers. Oh my gosh. Talk about facade heaven. That's what social media is, just one constant facade.
Yep. Huh. Pretty much.
So, wow. And you were starting to get to hostility. You know, you were talking about how being the child of Amanda, that somehow you picked up like being open to giving people the benefit of the doubt, I think is what you said. Yeah. And being willing to see the humanity in someone.
Yeah.
And how in the Black community, there's also a lot of anger at white people and hostility, right? And so I guess I wonder, do you feel like maybe that hostility also has a good purpose? You know, like, what do you think about that?
I'm kind of glad you asked that, because I was thinking as you were talking, and that's kind of what I was thinking about. So I'm just in middle school. They're gonna take us back here. Like one of my first interactions with race was like watching how Black people would treat white people in my middle school. It was honestly predominantly Spanish, and then second was Black, and last was
by
white.
Spanish you mean Latinx, Latino, Latina?
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah.
Not in Lancaster, actually, people say Spanish like, I'm like, Spain?
Not actually from Spain. Mostly Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic. But, and like, it was a thing. I don't know where they had learned it. And I went to a predominantly white elementary school, so that wasn't something I had learned. But the hostility towards white people was definitely a thing. And I think I saw it as people taking out their frustrations with their situations and putting it into a social setting. And when the oppressed outnumber the people in power, but we're all just children, like we're not really vessels of it yet, but when that sort of happens and they're outnumbered, there was like an isolation around them, a certain disrespect that was given to them. And this is at the age of like 11 or 12. So in general, I don't think the hostility does any favors, because now these white kids have such a different perspective of people of color because they're so hostile towards them.
Wow.
And so I remember thinking about that a lot in middle school.
Can I just say, even though I'm, 30 odd years older than you, it was in middle school that I also heard articulated more than I had previously, kind of anti-white kind of sentiment. And, I hate white people, like being widely spoken. And what was interesting in my middle school was all Black and Puerto Rican. So there were, except for teachers, there were no white people around. But some of the Puerto Ricans I remember who were saying it were like very European looking. And I remember thinking,
yeah,
I'm not, wait, are you not? Aren't
yeah.
you white? You know?
Same with some of the Puerto Ricans, you know, but they really hang on to that culture as strong as they can, just to not be associated with a white race.
Right. But, you know, that's a whole nother story. And
it really is a whole nother story.
Really, if Melody was here or somebody else from the Puerto Rican experience was here, it would have been nice to kind of hear their perspective. So, yeah, so in middle school, we start really having this articulation of race happen in ways that don't happen when you're younger.
Right. And I think it's because that's when the awareness grows. Because middle school, you're no longer a child. You're like starting to hit puberty. Parents are trying to talk to you like you're a little bit older. Like it's not baby talk anymore. I don't know. I've never talked to a middle school kid at this age, so I'm not completely sure. But if I had to guess, I would say that's when like you become most aware of things, and that's also when like that frustration, that hostility, you can see the outlet to let it out, and it's like verbally and aggressively.
And it's also maybe more the movies you're exposed to when you hit middle school.
Yeah, you make a good point.
You know, when you're younger, I know I was careful about what you could see. And, you know, one thing I also want to say is it was when Makeda, maybe it was when your brother too, but when I was going into their elementary schools and they would ask me to come in for Black History Month or talk about Kwanzaa, you know, I did a lot of that. We have pictures from me doing that. In what was that daycare? What do you call it? Preschool. I did that for you guys. And one of the things I started thinking about was, wow, the stories that I tell about U.S. history all have really bad white characters. And that is because U.S. history does have white characters dominating, oppressing, and, you know, somehow exploiting and stealing from people of color. So that's part of the real history. But also part of the real history is people of European descent partnering with, taking great risk, sometimes dying, sharing their wealth. You know, Benjamin Banneker, who's one of the early African-American scientists, inventors. I see Starlisha's on here. She's a Black History Club advisor, so she knows this. But Benjamin Banneker, his mom or his grandmother was a Welsh woman, but is a Welsh, you know, indentured servant. So what I'm saying is that, and who married an enslaved man who she had bought to work for her. But in fact, they formed a partnership and she married him, and they had this generations of kids who have been very important in American history. So what I found was important was to tell those stories too. So that, because I was thinking about your European American friends, like, come on, you're at preschool, you got these little kids, or you're at elementary. You're like, I got to provide some role models for these kids about how they can be good European Americans. Otherwise, you know, what is it that I'm telling them their role in history is? You know, to be an oppressor.
And it's just sowing guilt in them since they're young, and that turns into resentment, and resentment turns into
negative behavior.
Yes.
Yep, you're right. So,
but I'm glad you brought that up, because that just made me think about just our education system systematically. Like the way we even tell stories seems so planned and set up for a specific goal. It seems slighted. Like you said, so when it's Black History Month, I remember maybe like first grade to fifth grade, every year Black History Month, we learned about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, and I think that was it. But like you're saying, the other side of that, we're not learning about Black, like, subversive people, but we're also learning about the white people that I don't even want to say held them down. It's not the right word, but they weren't working together. It was like us and them. And like even teaching that through history, it's still setting off a certain vibe. It's like, I see completely what you're saying. I like what you're doing about incorporating mixing races in history and telling those stories.
Yes, stories of solidarity.
Uplifted each other rather than put each other down.
Well, only putting each other down, because I feel like it's all part of the truth.
Yeah.
But we need to be able to see ourselves. You know, I was at a conference training Beyond Diversity 101 Race. And prior to that, someone had written to me because I had sent an email while I was talking about the New York Times published an article on how Italians became white and the violence and the discrimination and the troubles that Italians had prior to them being allowed entry into whiteness in the United States of America. And I thought this was a very well done article. And I said at the very end of my email, I said, this article shows you something about Anglo Protestants dividing and conquering, you know, and it's just something like that. And someone wrote me back who was an Anglo Protestant descended person, and she just let me know how bad she felt, and also kind of defensive because, you know, it was bad. I mean, she recognizes that history. It's not like, you know, the Mayflower came and went without awful destructive consequences on generations and generations of people from all over the globe. It's a heavy history. It is a heavy heritage to fall into or to carry. And I said to her, yeah, but you're the one that the ancestors sent, and you're the one who knows. And so now you're the one who can heal your lineage. So even if you're descended from people who oppressed or stole or, you know, committed genocide, so you can heal that. You know, you can heal the separation that caused those people to think they could do that and it would be okay, you know? And someone else brought that up to me because they heard her say something about it. It sort of gave them another entry point to deal with their inheritance, you know? So, yeah, but that doesn't happen in school. That conversation it's just a little too deep.
It is, but necessary.
So when we talk about, you know, stop being afraid, one of the things that we're interested in is giving people the tools to have these deep conversations, you know, so that they can be vulnerable and we can stay at a heart level. Okay. So you said at the beginning that you feel like your superpower was that you can be compassionate. Yeah. You have the gift of empathy. Yeah. So in our 5 steps, we, you know, step 1 is, you know, checking with your wise self to make sure that you're in a balanced place. And then step 2 is to hold space for transformation, which is basically get yourself in the space of empathy and compassion.
I'm always there. Ready to go.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, let's talk about, because some people are there. You know, I'm pointing at you because I think when people try to tell me what's special about you, they're trying to like find the words and tell me things about you. I think they're like, well, she just floats in and she has this impact on groups. I think, I think you do live there. But let's talk about self-care, because some people who live there need to do things to take care of themselves. Yeah. So because there's a downside to living inside of that, you know?
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about the downside and then talk about, you know, what you can do to take care of yourself. If you're one of these beautiful people who has the superpower of empathy and compassion.
Even at the age of 18, I've already found people, particularly like people of the opposite sex, who find the comfort in opening up to me and sort of just take that to another level, and I become their sole reliance for like emotional stability. And me, I love to be there for people, but when it comes to like commitment or feeling, and that could just be me, or feeling like I owe somebody something, that's when it starts to get tricky. And if you're also like a sort of like a pushover person, you feel bad, you don't want to you don't want to deny people.
Oh, what I'm
that
hearing is
emotional availability.
boundaries.
Yes, boundaries, because you really don't want to deny people that emotional availability.
Right.
Especially once they've opened up and you know maybe what they need or what they're looking for, like, and then they come to you asking for more. It's almost you have more of a responsibility then because you know.
Because you know more about what they need.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay, now, because this is so critical. So you know how step one is checking with your wise self, and it's asking yourself, what is my physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being?
Mm-hmm.
So if there's anything in there where I need something, my first responsibility is to give it to myself before I engage with the other person. And one of the things that Melody was saying earlier is that when she starts her day, we also talk about morning routines, how important it is to choose the vibration you want to be in,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And one of those things is being able to say no to some stuff,
Mm-hmm.
even though it may be true, even though it may be important, but what's the vibration that you need right now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's, I feel like for women and maybe women of color and empathetic women or people, knowing that someone has a need and it's totally legitimate and they're a human being, and still choosing not to be in their space or in their vibration. Wow.
It's not something I do often.
Right.
Definitely need to work on that.
Yeah. It's a muscle. It's a practice. You know?
It's about, I guess, like justifying that guilt, like, or not justifying it, but putting it on trial, questioning, like, where is this guilt coming from? How would I feel if this was me? Because, you know, it's also about, Melody and I were just talking about this, not being so hard on yourself. And, yeah, giving yourself what you require is what she was telling me. Like, yeah.
Giving yourself what you require. And then, you know, speaking of guilt, I'm going to write about this. So this book is Stop Being Afraid. But my next book is really going to be more pointed directly toward Black women, because I think there's a specific weight that we feel because of our community and our history, you know, and this one elder, I mean, she's not older than me, but, you know, an elder in the Black community here, who does a lot of service in our community. She told me that she feels unbearable guilt when she says no. So she's always the person that people come to volunteer, to do this, to take somebody somewhere in her family for an appointment, to make an event happen, to coordinate something, because she feels unbearable guilt when she says no. And she said, I said, tell me a little bit more about that. And she said, well, in her family, she was taught that to whom much has been given, much is required.
Yeah.
You know, so if you have, you know, if you, like you, Makeda, you have a lot of financial stability and, I don't know, maybe more emotional stability, who knows, whatever you've been given. And so she felt like because her grandparents had like a third grade education or whatever it was, and she had a master's degree or whatever thing she has now, that she couldn't say no to anybody because she had been given so much.
Yeah.
And the problem is that she was resentful. Saying yes wasn't like actually making her a better person. It was making her tired, resentful, unhealthy, and disconnected. Because I'm saying yes to you, but I'm pissed off because I need a nap. I'm hungry. My kids are waiting. My husband's mad at me.
So what'd you tell her?
So when someone is in a state like that, you can't say, so just say no. I mean, you could say that, but that doesn't change their behavior because they got this patterning. So my thing was to ask, what would it be like if you could honor yourself? You know, in addition to the unbearable, that's when her unbearable guilt came up. And I was like, oh, so for you to even consider this is bringing up huge guilt and anxiety. Got you. So I said, well, what are some of what's one small thing you can give yourself? Because I think you got to alter your vibration and get somebody attracted to being in another way of being.
Yeah.
You know? So, and I would say that to you. What's a little thing that you can do to put yourself in a vibration that you want to be in that gives to you? Is there something, something you can do for 5 minutes that's a gift to you?
Hmm.
The other thing I do when I talk to women is I say, what do you want your daughter to be like?
Mhm.
Do you want your daughter to walk around with this unbearable guilt whenever she needs to say no? And
That's
most,
funny because I always think like if I have like attacking thoughts or anything, I'm like, would I ever want my mother to think this about herself? That's what I think.
do you really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow, you are healing generations back. Yeah. So a lot of women are very protective of their kids or their daughters, you know. So what you wouldn't, so things that you might tolerate for yourself, you would never want for your daughter.
Hmm.
Or things that you might say badly about yourself, you would never say to a 2-year version of you. Because who would say that to a 2-year-old?
Exactly.
You know?
You have to have that same amount of regard for yourself.
Yes. And it takes practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to thank you all for being here today, for joining us. This has been a really fun conversation with Makeda. And tomorrow, the print version of Stop Being Afraid is going to be available. If you want to check out the print version of Say the Wrong Thing, which has more stories from my life, that's already available on Amazon. And we thank you. We really do thank you for being with us. So let's check and see, Makeda, if we have any comments here. No, we don't have any comments. Thank you for being here. We hope you have a great, we hope you take this Black Friday as an opportunity to buy Black, to support a Black business or Black-owned business. Makeda, I'm going to let you say, leave you with the last word, if you would, on, you know, either you can talk about either supporting a Black business or mentorship. That was something else that's come up in our book. Or, you know, affirming superpowers in young Black women, anything of that nature.
I just want to say, I think every single young Black woman needs either an older Black mentor, female, or an older Black female therapist. Because I don't know where this is coming from, but I think someone just needs to hear it. I'm gonna just let you know that your different therapists will just change your experience, and having someone that is as culturally familiar as you are is very important and can absolutely change the way you're diagnosed, the way you're viewed. Like, I'm telling you.
Wow.
Yeah. So really keep that in mind, and that's just going into like self-care, boundaries and stuff. If you're really empathetic, if you're sensitive in general, you should probably just go see a therapist just to have time, because sensitive people tend to focus on other people a lot. You're always paying attention to what's around you. It's so important to find that time to have someone speaking to you and asking you about you. How are you doing? Because a lot of the times we just want to cater and help other people's needs. So
can I say something to that? So that's what we do in Racial Justice from the Heart. We provide mentorship. You know, we do private one-on-one mentoring, people of European descent, people of color. And I think Makeda's right, having a safe place to reflect on yourself, you know, and to make sure that you are taking things in a way that's helpful to you rather than taking things in a way that's, you know, paralyzing or destroying you. And having a mentor that can slowly guide you out of the judgment and into the introspection is important. Wow, out of judgment and into introspection. Yeah. And I think the other thing a mentor can help you to do is to get grounded and to sort of get out of your head and into your heart and into your feet, you know, and so that you're not just sort of like running around in your projections. Exactly. And the reality that you just created in your head. It's so important to have someone that can be completely honest with you and introduce you to the way they view the world, the way they view you, because, you know, if you're just living in your own reality, you're going to start to just see yourself a certain way with no other perspectives on you. And that can be detrimental. Well,
whether positive or negative
Right.
perspectives.
True. Because most of us tend to see ourselves very negatively.
And the ones that see ourselves very positively are narcissistic.
True.
They
Or
tend to be.
yes, or really kind of do bad things to other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. So thank you for that, tip on why it's important to have a mentor or a therapist, having a mentor of color, having a Black woman.
Someone you can relate with, or just somebody you feel safe with.
Yes, 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 yes. Who has that cultural similarity?
Cultural similarities, yeah.
Yes.
I want to stress that. Not even racial similarities, but someone who you think understands what you're saying when you don't know how to verbalize it correctly.
Wow.
So important.
Yes, yes, that's very rich. So, well, thank you for saying that. So, Makeda, I know that you're on Facebook. I see you on the Dr. Amanda Kemp page.
Yeah,
can people expect to see you posting there?
Oh, yeah. I dropped the ball a few years ago, guys. But normally I'm on there. I'm posting those fun interactive posts you get. I'm on there commenting. Come comment with me.
Oh my God. So, I think this has been this interview, I can't get the light right. Somehow I seem to be in the shadow no matter what I do. Maybe I'm just in the shadow of my daughter. I just have to live with it, But I just want to say, I think that's a little better. Whatever, we're all good. I think that this interview, you got a sense of the energy over here.
Yes. All love. Peace and love.
Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah. So peace and love to you. We'll see you guys soon. And thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, we're still not off yet.